This is how to make niacin bioavailable from seeds and grains. Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Masterjohn of chrismasterjohnphd.com, and this is Chris Masterjohn Lite, where the name of the game is details, schmetails, just tell me what works. And today we're going to talk about making niacin bioavailable in seeds and grains. In the last episode, I talked about how dark roasting coffee is important to freeing the niacin. Well, we have a similar problem in seeds and grains. About 85 to 90% of the niacin in whole grains is unavailable. About 40% of the niacin in seeds is unavailable. And yet, all of the niacin in pulses, yeast, and animal products is unavailable. So we're primarily concerned about grains, and to a somewhat lesser extent, we're concerned about seeds. The factors making niacin unavailable in grains and seeds are basically the same. It's just more important in grains because if we don't do something about this, we're only going to get about 10% of the niacin in a grain product. Whereas even if we do nothing about this, we still can get access to 60% of the niacin in seeds. So let's focus on grains. One thing that is very well known in nutrition circles is that historically, niacin deficiency spread across the world when Columbus found corn in Central America and spread corn across the world, but did not spread the traditional process of soaking the corn in alkali known as nixtamalization. He did not spread that traditional processing of the corn across the world. And so an alkaline solution, doing nothing else, will free the niacin that's bound in grains. Although this was made famous because of corn, the exact same principle applies to wheat flour. For example, about 80% of the niacin in whole wheat is not bioavailable, but if you make a product like scones and you add baking soda to the flour, then you will free the niacin. How much do you have to add? You will maximally free the niacin when you have 3.5 grams of baking soda per 100 grams of flour. By contrast, the traditional yeast fermentation of a whole wheat bread is only going to free about 25% of the bound niacin. So it has a small effect, but it's not that effective. Apart from an alkaline solution, the best way to liberate niacin from grains and seeds is to ferment them. I think the problem with a traditional yeast fermentation is just that the fermentation time is too short. If you have an 8-hour soaking time with a sourdough, that will free most of the bound niacin. If you combine sprouting for 3 days with an 8-hour sourdough fermentation, that's even more effective. So generally, if you start with corn and you sprout it for 3 days, you take that 10% that's bioavailable and you double it. But then when you sourdough it, you have an 8-fold increase in the free niacin. And if you combine the 3-day sprouting with the 8-hour sourdough fermentation, you have a 10-fold increase in the free niacin. In other words, by combining the two, you're liberating almost all of the niacin. Now, when you look at seeds, I don't see a lot of alkaline solution or fermentation going on for what most people are doing with their seeds, but I do see sprouting. That's going to help liberate some of the niacin. It's generally good to get sprouted seeds, but on the one hand, sprouting isn't the most effective thing to do. It's a pretty moderate effect. On the other, because seeds have 60% of their niacin in the free form anyway, seeds are in general not going to be as good a source of niacin as they look like in a nutritional database, but they are going to be a pretty good source of niacin. Now, technically, grains and pulses are also seeds because you can plant them in the ground and grow something with them. But when I say seed, I'm talking about what we typically think of when we mean seeds. And when we talk about pulses, like beans, lentils, and peas, those actually have their niacin in the freely available form. So do animal products. So to sum up, our best choices for freeing the niacin from grains and seeds is going to be a strongly alkaline solution on the order of 3.5 grams of baking soda per 100 grams of flour, or the combination of sprouting and a long sourdough fermentation process.
This episode is brought to you by Ancestral Supplements Living Collagen. Our Native American ancestors believed that eating the organs from a healthy animal would support the health of the corresponding organ of the individual. Ancestral Supplements has a nose-to-tail product line of grass-fed liver, organs, living collagen, bone marrow, and more, all in the convenience of a capsule. For more information or to buy any of their products, go to ancestralsupplements.com.
This episode is brought to you by Vitamins and Minerals 101. This is my new free 30-day course providing one lesson a day on each nutrient delivered straight to your inbox. It can go to your email or it can go to your Facebook Messenger. If you get the Messenger version, it's taught by Chris Masterbot, my baby bot. It's more interactive, there are more emojis, and there are more jokes. But both email and Facebook Messenger are incredibly educational. Each lesson covers why the nutrient is important to your health, how to know if you have too little or too much or the wrong balance with other nutrients, how to get it from food, and when you should think about supplementing. It is not a technical or advanced course. It is completely minimum in its technical jargon, and it is designed for the beginner with no background in nutrition and no background beyond high school in the basic sciences. Nevertheless, many people who have backgrounds in nutrition are saying that it is an amazing refresher course full of nuggets of valuable information in each lesson. Sign up completely free by Facebook Messenger or by email at chrismasterjohnphd.com/101. This episode is brought to you by Testing Nutritional Status, the ultimate cheat sheet. This is my recipe to empower you to banish any deficiency or nutritional imbalance from your body. I've been through the pain of my teeth falling apart, my stomach being in constant pain, and my OCD going off the rails during my stint with veganism, to the point where panic attacks were the norm and I was afraid to eat any of the food in my house. I've been through the path of healing using nutrient-dense animal foods to nourish all the systems of my body and become a new person. But I've also learned that my needs change over time. The red meat and liver that were so healing in my recovery from veganism later started sapping my energy and brain power, only to find out that I'm genetically predisposed to iron overload and need to manage it with blood donations. And I've learned from friends, colleagues, and clients that everyone is different. Your needs are not mine. Mine aren't what they were 10 years ago. Yours won't be what they are now in 10 years. That's why we need a precise recipe to know exactly what's missing, exactly what's overloaded, exactly what's imbalanced, and an action plan to fix things, and a way to measure our success. That's what I've done with Testing Nutritional Status, the ultimate cheat sheet. Get your copy at chrismasterjohnphd.com/cheat sheet and use the code LITE20, that's LITE and the number 20, LITE20 to get 20% off. For ad-free versions of these episodes with transcripts that you can read and getting early access to the episodes often weeks or maybe even months ahead of time, you can sign up for the CMJ Masterpass at chrismasterjohnphd.com/masterpass and use the code LITE10 to get 10% lifetime discount. The audio of this episode was enhanced and post-processed by Bob Devodian of Torian Mixing. You can find more of his work at torianonlinemixing.com. All right, I hope you found this useful. Signing off, this is Chris Masterjohn of chrismasterjohnphd.com. This has been Chris Masterjohn Lite. I will see you in the next episode.